Continuing the process to troubleshoot the small guitar amp that I made from this Imperial tube radio, I picked up a Knight Series 600 tube tester off an auction on eBay. It was a little bit over 30 bucks, including the shipping. I didn't expect much. And over the course of about 2 weeks, I took the thing apart multiple times, cleaned it up, and got the thing mechanically and electrically working again. So over the next couple of videos, I don't know how many yet, but over the next couple of videos, I want to step through the process that I went through to refurbish this thing and get it back up and running again so I could test the tubes for this tube amp and for other tubes that I want to put in amps and other electronic gizmos as I go along. And I thought you guys would be interested in seeing what it takes to get an old tube tester like this. You may find one of your own. Hopefully you can glean some information off of what I had to do to get this thing back up and running. Ahead of the tube tester arriving in the mail after I had won the auction, I downloaded a copy of the Knight 600 series tube checker manual that came with the unit when it would have been new. And in here there's some information about assembly. It's very limited because this is only a partial manual, but one of the most important bits was the calibration information that was going to come in handy much later in this project. Instructions for operation, since tube testers aren't that common these days, it was handy to have a list of instructions on put the tube in here, set these voltages, and how to actually perform the test for each of the tubes. And probably the most important information of all was the schematic diagram, which I have obviously altered and made notes on here as I went through. I could use this to guide my way through the restoration project. Schmutz like that. Okay, this is where I am at the moment. I have gone through the Knight 600 series. I have done my best to repair the mechanical mechanism that rolls this sacred scroll back and forth. I still have the acrylic window out of there. I may or may not put that back in. Anyway, so mechanical issues aside, and the cosmetic issue of that window, I went through and I have reflowed all of the connections to these, and I have cleaned off the contacts and all of the slider switches. So that's working. I've tested to the best of my ability all the resistors and the capacitor. The capacitor is a little bit below spec, but all it does is govern the amount of current that goes through the neon bulb down there. It's not critical in terms of the function of the current going into the tube. So the major issue with the sockets now, this 9-pin socket was in pretty horrible condition. Something got into pin number 4 there and had oxidized pretty bad. Something with copper in it because of all that bluish green, the patina that's in there. So I took this guy out, got some replacements from Amazon, and dropped that thing in there, reflowed all of those connections and neatened that up. So that's working. But in the course of doing that and kind of going through and looking to how all these other wires are connected, it's a passable soldering job, but it's not the neatest flow everywhere. And I may have to come back and change out that 7-pin socket. There are some issues. I'm not sure they come across in the camera, but again, it's issues with solder flow, and it's just not the neatest job in the world. The meter is kind of problematic. It sticks. It's really inconsistent, but it's also analog and it's old, so I can deal with that for right now. But the big issue I seem to have right now is the transformer and the switch down below that that's used to select the heater filament voltages seems really, really off by a factor of 2. And that I don't quite understand. It's inconsistent, which makes me think that somehow in this medusa of all of these wires coming out, that I may just have some bad connections down here. I may have gotten some wires crossed. Well, not me. Whoever put this thing together may have put this, may have put these in the wrong place or off by 1, because that seems to be how the voltages step through. They go up by a factor of 2, which is exactly what I'm seeing wrong with the switching mechanism. So who knows? I mean, maybe I just need to loosen up the knob on the front. I can just move it over a couple of degrees so it reads right. But I don't know. So I'm going to have to take this thing off. I'm going to kind of buzz it out a little bit and see where this and the switch and the front panel, see where that disagreement is coming in. I've just gone through all of the filament voltages with this rotary switch down here, and the results are a little surprising, if not a little disturbing. So I've identified the 2 lines there that are the filament hot and common or ground connection. I'm reading them off here on my voltmeter set to AC. Now, what you're seeing right there, this is supposed to be off, and I've got 20 volts going across here. If I go up 1, that should be 0.63, which I've got. Okay, so that one's correct. Off is really off. It's 20 volts instead of that. We go up to 1.4. All right, looking pretty good. Next one should be 2. Okay, that's pretty good. What's my next one? 2.5. Okay, 2.8. I'm a little hot there. And 3.0. Okay, I've gone all the way up to 5.1. So I've skipped 3, I've skipped 4.2, and now I'm up at 5. So I'm missing 2 voltages there. And after stepping through all of these, yay verily, 3 and 4.2 are not there, and it's 5, 6.3, 7.5 is actually reading 8, 12.6, I've got 13, 20.6. Okay, actually for that expected 19.6, it's actually closer to the off value of 19.5, 26.6, and 37. I've got 34, 53.3. Anyway, so all of my numbers past a certain point are like down by 2. I'm not sure what to think. I've either got a bad connection or this is some bizarre transformer and switch from another unit, maybe. Maybe it's a different model. In any case, the front panel does not match the voltages that it points to. Well, here she is. Medusa in all of her glory. I took off the switch and filed all that down, burned myself in the process, but all those contacts are clean. And best I can tell, this entire assembly with the rotary switch and Medusa here, for lack of a better term, that came as an assembly that just plugged into this. So I think it was for a slightly different model. This is the Knight 600 series, and I know there's a 600A, there's a 600B, there's probably more than that. So I imagine that there were different filament voltages. And I have been able to make out, there's some very smudgy text here where I can see the voltages going on around, starting from common and working on up through the voltages. And yeah, when it gets to where I was having the issue between 2.5 and then it's suddenly jumping up to 5 volts, that's where those missing voltages should be, but they're not. So yeah, so the voltages coming out here don't agree with the front panel. What I'm going to do is attach this thing back on and just be very cognizant of where I'm putting these things. Skip the missing voltages and then continue on around, picking back up at 5. And that should have me end up at the 50 volt mark, and I'm going to leave off the 70 and 100. This is the magic step. This last filament wire I installed, that is the 2.5. The next one is my 5.0, which I need to skip this guy and this guy. That's like my 3.0 and my 4.2. This guy is my 5. Alright, for my next special case, I've had to flip over to the other side of Medusa here. This is my 6.3 filament, and this gray lead goes off to the backlights for the scroll. So there's my gray lead for that, and both of these need to hook to the next position on the rotary switch. Alright, so that's all the voltages corrected for their position on the rotary switch, skipping the 2 that aren't there, namely this guy for 70 volts and the 110, which I have to hook up to another guy over here. 4, 2, 2.8, skip, 5, 6.5, 8, 12.9, that should be 19.6, 25, 32, and 50. And then 70 and 100 I can't reach.
I can't believe it's only 9:30.
Now that I have fooled with everything inside that I care to fool with, sort of ever, I am ready to get into calibration. And following along, it says to set this for a 6v6 tube. So for a 6v6, I am on type 3. The filament is set for 6.3. C for the load, set to 29, right about there. Up 3, 4, 5. Down 1, 7, 8. Turn the tube tester on. Set the line adjust control of the tube tester for a voltmeter reading of exactly 6.3 volts. Tube tester is on. Insert voltmeter leads into pins 2 and 7 of the 8-pin octal socket. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Line adjust to 6.3. Okay, so I'm at 6.3. Adjust R10, the calibration control mounted until the needle of the tube tester points exactly to the center line test mark. I'm going to start with it in the center position and see how that does. Okay, that made it worse. Okay, consulting the schematic that's my calibration trim pot there, and it's all the way maxed out at 1.2K. And the question I'm having is, should I bump that up with something else that's larger, and where would it need to go? Got a 1/2 watt 1K resistor here. Snip that off. I have removed the red wire, this guy, that was connecting that center wiper all the way up to this leg on the trim pot. Replace that with a 1K resistor. Plugged in, turned on. Look at that. It's just about perfect. Okay. So according to the instructions, that is now calibrated. For my last step, I picked up some of this electronics cleaner, and it comes with a handy dandy straw. And I used that to go through and spray all of the bat switches and the short and test switch and the off-on switch as well. So it seems to be working, and I'm going to test my old faithful 12AX7, which is a known good tube. So I've got this set on 6.3, which is what I know it needs to be for the filaments. And in the calibration test, I found out that this octal socket over here is perfect for holding the probes. So I have that in pins 1 and 2. So I've got that hooked up. And there you can see on the meter, I'm reading 6.15. So now I'm going to tweak this knob here to get it up to 6.3. 6.3. Okay, so that's my filament voltage there. So I know pins 4 and 5 are my filament, according to this. Type 1, 6.3 I've already tested, 20 on the load, and up, first test are 1 and 2, down are 3, 4, and 5. What if I do that? Okay, so you can see the tube actually warming up, and it goes over here into the good range. Okay, so for the other triode in the tube, we do 6 and 7 in the up position, and 4, 5, and 8 in the down position. I'll test that half, and again it goes over into the good. Okay, good enough. So I'm happy with it. I'm gonna quit messing with this thing and call it done.